Move on now to the next available deputy. Other questions, Deputy Mick Wallace. 30 seconds to introduce his question.
Thanks, Lassan. Minister, there are currently 14 liquid natural gas terminals in the planning or building stages around the EU. These terminals are mainly the result of a deal struck between Trump and Juncker last year. Trump commenting afterwards that the EU was going to be a very, very big buyer of US liquid gas. The terminal being built on the Shannon is going to lock us into future fossil fuel use when our future energy policy needs to be about renewables. Why are we allowing this private company to do this?
Deputy, thank you for the question. Consistent with European energy policy, gas markets across Europe are commercial, liberalised and competitive. Europe is currently importing approximately 70% of its gas needs, with this share expected to increase. The diversification of sources is important for security of supply purposes. The involvement of US or other companies or corporations in the European gas industry is a commercial decision by those entities in a liberalised gas market. The EU has acknowledged the importance of importing gas from the USA and other sources to diversify and render its energy supply more secure. At present, Russia is the largest source of those imports, whereas the US is in the order of 1 to 2%. The diversification of sources of supply is important for security of supply purposes, and liquid natural gas offers the opportunity to diversify supply. In Ireland, since the Corrib field opened, we have reduced our dependence on gas imports from 95% to approximately 33% in 2017. However, that reliance is going to rise again as the flow from the Corrib field reduces. We import just one source in Scotland. The Shannon LNG project has been designated as a EU project of common interest. Ireland has supported that designation as it offers Ireland the potential of improved security of supply. In August 2018, Shannon LNG announced that it had entered into an agreement with New Fortress Energy to develop the proposed LNG terminal at Ballylongford, County Kerry. As this is a private commercial project, any future investment decisions on the development of this project are ultimately the responsibility of the project promoters, subject to compliance with all legal and regulatory requirements.
Deputy Wallace is 1 minute.
You say that it increases security, right? You're literally moving, say, away from Russian gas, you're going to American, you're going to frack gas, which is twice as damaging. It's a scientific fact that when we talk about US gas, it is frack gas, we're talking about gas that releases more than twice the amount of methane than conventional gas, which comes from Russia, right? Which is already more damaging to global warming than coal. This is nuts, like. I mean, this isn't going in the right direction in terms of climate change. I mean, there's no evidence that this is a good climate action decision. Royal Dutch Shell invented the idea of natural gas as a bridge fuel back in 2001. And when we're still talking about 20 years later, the reality is that liquid natural gas is dirtier than coal and diesel oil in terms of greenhouse gas emissions over a 20-year period per unit of energy produced. And this is because of the unburnt methane that is released through the extraction, processing, transport, storage and combustion of that gas. I mean, I was looking at stuff from Cornell University, which is one of the leaders on this field, and they've pointed out that reducing methane is absolutely key to meeting the UN COP21 target.
Minister is 1 minute.
Thank you, Deputy. And I listen intently to what you're saying there. And I would like to point out initially that right now, what do we do in terms of our supply? We have to transition to more cleaner sources of fuels, but in the meantime, we have to have a transitionary period. So we just cannot say we're not doing this or we're not doing that. And I suppose the other thing about the Shannon one is that it is actually a private enterprise governed by EU regulations, which mean that it can be done, and it is a need for secure of supply right now. In 20 years' time, we will have transitioned away from this type of fuel, but we just cannot do it overnight. And what I mentioned earlier about the likes of Mór Mona going from peat to other sources of energy, it's a transition that will take time, and we're working on that. But at the same time, we need to have security of supply, and we cannot rely on just one source alone.
Final question.
Yes, but you're admitting that we're going to a dirtier fuel now by buying frack gas from America. And I mean, listen, but there's been a myth about gas as well. And even though, I mean, listen, I've looked at the Minister's responses over the last number of months, and and we're saying that we're meeting that the EU, that we're following EU guidelines. But the EU unelected Commission is in the hands of the fossil fuel as far as we're concerned. And I mean, okay, gas, the CO2 emissions is far less than coal and diesel, but the methane element is disastrous. And as the Cornell University crowd were saying, the Earth's climate system responds too slowly to reductions in carbon dioxide emissions, and warming to 2% and higher will occur in the next 35 years unless methane emissions are reduced below current levels. And the unit in Shannon is going to lock us in to something that isn't positive about where we should be going in terms of dealing with the challenges of climate change. This is not a way forward. And you were saying there was no security without it. I'll tell you what now, rather than go to use a dirtier fuel for using frack gas from America, you'd be better off staying better friends with the Americans in order to bring us to the point where we're using more renewables.
Minister, final response.
And Deputy, I do agree with you that we have to get to that stage where we will be using more renewables, and that is part of the action plan, all of government action plan for climate change. And as I said to the Deputy earlier in connection with the warming of our fisheries, this is happening, it's a reality, and we have to face up to it, and we have to have an adult conversation about that. And as well as that, what we need to do is make sure that whatever we do it in a way that would transition to the proper place. I don't disagree with you on the research that's there, but at the moment what we need to be doing is making sure we can secure supply in the moment, and that we move away from these fossil fuels and to a more cleaner society, and we need to do that, and I agree with you.
Now we move.